Ferrari are bringing the most dangerous update package of the season to Miami, and if it works, the whole title fight changes in one weekend. That is what makes this feel different from a normal race upgrade. This is not one new part and a few hopeful setup tweaks. This is a full strike on every weakness the SF26 has shown so far, and it arrives with Lewis Hamilton still waiting to find out whether Ferrari can finally give him a car he can trust when the pressure rises. But here is what the paddock is not talking about. This package only matters if Miami exposes the truth. Ferrari have spent the break building 6 changes into one joined up plan. A new floor, a revised Macarena rear wing, fresh battery software, halo aero pieces, weight saving parts, and cooling fixes for the heat that is coming. They tested key parts at Monza on April 22nd inside a 200-kilometer filming day, then added more data from Mugello and Fano before locking the package in. Fred Vasseur knows Ferrari cannot keep giving away straight line pace while Mercedes sit on 135 points, and the gap is already 45. And that is where this story gets complicated, because Miami is not just where Ferrari bring more speed, it is where the track decides whether any of this is real. Hamilton is the human center of this, because a faster Ferrari is not enough on its own. He needs a car that stops fading on the straight, stops shifting underneath him through the lap, and starts turning qualifying speed into race pace. Charles Leclerc has already shown that the raw speed is in there, but raw speed does not win a long Sunday when the car still asks too many questions. And the real story was never about the lap time. It was about whether Miami is the one place that can expose exactly what this Ferrari package really is, and that is where the next part begins. Miami is the one place Ferrari cannot hide. This track is long, fast, messy, and brutal on any car that still has a weakness buried under the bodywork. The lap runs over 5.4 kilometers, the race goes 57 laps, and the circuit throws 19 corners and 3 long straights at the drivers, with top speeds pushing past 350 kilometers per hour. That means every flaw gets dragged into the open, whether it is battery drain, rear instability, or a car that feels sharp in one sector and nervous in the next. What no broadcast covered is this: Ferrari did not just bring this package to Miami for spectacle. They brought it here because this circuit forces the truth out of a car. The weekend format makes it even more dangerous. Miami is a sprint round, which means Ferrari do not get the comfort of a normal build-up before Parc Ferme starts to close the options down. One proper practice session is all they get before the pressure changes. If the floor is still unpredictable, if the energy software still leaves the car exposed at the end of the straight, or if the cooling package cannot handle the heat, Miami will show it fast. The data tells a completely different story from a normal upgrade weekend, because this is not a place where a team can slowly learn its way into the sweet spot. Ferrari have chosen a weekend that punishes hesitation and rewards a car that is ready immediately. That is why this race matters far beyond one result. A clean weekend here would tell the paddock Ferrari have finally built a car that can survive both the straight line pressure and the corner-to-corner balance changes that have haunted them so far. A messy weekend would raise a much harsher question: whether the package is bold but still too fragile for a title fight that is already moving quickly. Miami is not just another stop on the calendar. It is the track that can turn Ferrari belief into hard proof, or turn all that confidence into doubt. And once you understand why Ferrari picked this race to show their hand, you have to go back to the decision that made this whole moment possible. Ferrari did not arrive at this point by accident. The real move happened much earlier, when Fred Vasseur chose to stop chasing short-term fixes and push the team fully toward the 2026 car. And that decision cost Ferrari a lot in the moment, but it gave them something far more important: time. While other top teams were still fighting deep into 2025, Ferrari were already shaping the SF26 in the wind tunnel and on the simulator. That gave Loic Serra and the factory more room to test ideas, change direction, and build a car with a bigger development path. The first races of this season were never meant to show the final version. That is why this upgrade matters more than a normal package. Ferrari have been building toward this moment for months, and now the pressure shifts from planning to proof. Because once a team makes a sacrifice that big, the next question is simple: did the drivers already show where the real weakness of the car has been all along? Or Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc have already shown Ferrari where the real problem is. This car has speed in it, but it does not give both drivers the same confidence across a full race. That is why Miami matters so much for Ferrari. Hamilton's side of the story is clear. When the car loses energy on the straight or shifts too much through a lap, he cannot attack the way he wants. Leclerc's side is different, but it points to the same issue. He has been able to pull strong pace from the car, especially over one lap, but that speed has not always turned into full race control. That is what makes the driver picture so important. Ferrari do not need proof that the car can be fast for a moment. They need proof that it can stay strong, stable, and usable from start to finish. And once both drivers point at the same deeper weakness, the focus moves straight to the part of the package that has to fix it first. The new floor is the most important part of this whole Ferrari package. If that part does not work, the rest of the upgrade loses a big part of its value. Ferrari need the car to feel more stable, more planted, and more predictable through the fast parts of the lap. That has been one of the biggest problems so far. The SF26 can look sharp in one corner, then lose rear confidence in the next, especially when the speed and direction change quickly. A better floor is meant to clean up the airflow under the car and give the drivers a platform they can trust for more than just a few corners. That is why Ferrari tested this area so seriously before Miami. They know this is not just about finding extra pace, it is about fixing the base of the car first. And if the base improves, then the next part of the story becomes even bigger, because Ferrari still have another battle to solve on the straights. Ferrari can improve the balance of the SF26, sharpen the floor, and make the car easier to drive, but none of that fully matters if they still lose the fight on the straight. That is the next wall standing in front of them. Mercedes have opened 2026 with 3 wins from the first 3 Grands Prix, and that has given them a strong early grip on both championships. In the team standings, Mercedes sit on 135 points while Ferrari have 90, and that gap is big enough to shape how every upgrade is judged from this point forward. Ferrari are not just chasing lap time now, they are chasing control of the season. But the reason this part of the story feels so serious is that Ferrari already know where the pain is coming from. Their problem has not only been raw speed, it has been how the car uses its energy over a lap. When the battery runs out too early, the car becomes exposed at the worst possible moment, right at the end of the straight when the fight into the braking zone begins. That is why the Miami software change matters so much. Ferrari are trying to make the power unit work smarter, not just harder, so the car can release energy at the right points and stop fading when the race starts stretching out. If that change works, the pressure on Hamilton and Leclerc instantly drops. If it does not, Mercedes keep forcing Ferrari to drive defensively. That is also why this is bigger than one weekend. Ferrari do not need to erase the whole Mercedes edge in a single step, but they do need to shrink it enough to keep the title race alive while the season moves toward the next phase. Kimi Antonelli leads the driver's standings on 72 points. George Russell is next on 63. Charles Leclerc has 49, and Lewis Hamilton has 41, so Ferrari still have time, but not much room for wasted weekends. This section of the battle is about survival as much as speed. Ferrari have to stop the bleeding before the gap gets too heavy to carry, and once that power fight is clear, the next question becomes even sharper, because Ferrari still have one more weapon that could change how the whole car behaves at high speed. Ferrari still have one more card that could change the shape of this season, and it is the strangest one on the car. The rear wing everyone started calling the Macarena first drew attention in Bahrain testing. Then Ferrari planned to run it in China practice because the design flips far more dramatically than a normal low drag wing state. Lewis Hamilton said at the time that the team were pushing hard to bring it forward, which tells you how seriously Ferrari view this idea. This is not a normal rear wing update, it is Ferrari trying to unlock a very different answer to the 2026 aero fight. What makes it so important is that the wing is only one part of a bigger rear-end concept. Formula One's own technical analysis explained that Ferrari's flow turning device behind the exhaust is working with diffuser extending bodywork, and that this layout is possible because Ferrari pushed the differential and drive shaft geometry in a very unusual direction. Then that means the clever part is not only the flap itself. The real advantage sits deeper in the packaging of the car, which is why copying the full idea during the season is far harder than just building a similar looking wing. Ferrari may have found something rivals cannot simply bolt onto their own cars, but Ferrari still have to prove it can race cleanly. The race reported that the version tested so far could not yet be trusted in race conditions because it did not give enough rear stability under combined braking and steering load, which is exactly why Monza testing matters before Miami. That leaves Ferrari with a choice. If the updated version behaves, this becomes a real weapon. If it still feels nervous, then the most creative idea on the SF26 stays more theory than threat. And once that question is hanging over the car, the final part of the story becomes unavoidable, because Miami now has to decide whether Ferrari are starting a comeback or just making the title fight look closer than it really is. Miami is where Ferrari stop being judged on promise and start being judged on damage. Right now, Mercedes lead the team's table with 135 points. Ferrari sit on 90, and that means the gap is already 45 before round 4 even begins. In the driver's fight, Kimi Antonelli leads on 72, George Russell has 63, Charles Leclerc has 49, and Lewis Hamilton has 41. So the target for Ferrari is not just to look quick for a session or two. They need a weekend that changes the shape of those numbers and proves this package can hit back when the championship is still young enough to move. That is why the verdict in Miami is actually very simple. But if Ferrari can keep both cars in the real fight across the full weekend, hold their ground against Mercedes on the straight, and stop the race pace from slipping away after qualifying, then this package has done its job. And if that happens, the rest of the grid has a problem, because McLaren are only on 46 points, and Red Bull Racing are down on 16, so a strong Ferrari weekend would not just tighten one gap, it would start redrawing the whole order behind Mercedes. That would turn Miami from an upgrade weekend into the moment the season opens back up. But if Ferrari arrive with all this noise, all this work, and all this belief, then still leave Miami without a real shift in the fight, the questions get much harder. Not about effort and not about ambition, but about whether this car can truly become the thing Ferrari need it to be over a full title campaign. That is the weight hanging over this weekend. Miami will not tell Ferrari everything about 2026, but it will tell them whether they are finally chasing Mercedes or only chasing the idea of them.